probably a little bit much for the stock clutch. This stock clutch, from what I understand, is kind of weak in the first place. Heard complaints about, you know, once you get it up around 60 miles an hour, it won't accelerate. I was actually seeing that last night. I tried to do some runs last night, and like the dumbass that I am, I had my arms all in the way of the camera, so hopefully this camera setup works better. So this is the baseline run. We got 32-inch System 3 XTR 370s on this. Stock tune, stock clutch. I am not going to tune the ECU at this time, but we are going to put an Aftermarket Assassin clutch kit in today. So this is just going to get our baseline run. We are going to be running the draggy. The way you evaluate this per Aftermarket Assassins is you do a 10 mile per hour to a 60 mile per hour run. Once you pass through 55 miles per hour, then you check your RPMs. The RPMs should be between 8,200 and 8,400. Last night when I did this, they appeared to be about 8,300. So we're going to go do this run, and we'll get our baseline, and then we'll get into the clutch install. Right after we get around this turn, we're going to go. So I'm going to let this thing get slowed down a little bit. I'm going to get to 10 miles per hour. I want it straight. Wide open throttle. Get to 10, 10, 10, come on. All right, folks, so it's time to put this Aftermarket Assassins clutch kit in. The 32s, I think, just weigh a little bit much for the stock clutching on the Pro XP. And not only that, but I've heard that even with the carnivores, that stock clutching is a little weak. So we bought this even before the machine was here. We have a little over 400 miles on the machine now, most of those with the XTR 370s. Having something other than those tires is really not an option. I don't want carnivores, they're too light and too weak. I want something that's durable. So, and the traction with the XTRs is just amazing. So let's open this up and see what we got. A couple stickers, Aftermarket Assassin stickers, of course they'll go on the machine, will represent. What do we got in here? We've got our weights, and so these are the magnets that go in the clutch weights. They're adjustable, so we'll set those aside. Super strong, they better be. Got some instructions in here for us. Let's see. This is a stage 3 kit with the high load helix. We got the high load helix. We're going to try this high load helix, see what happens. If we don't like it, we'll go to the performance helix, but stock tune with 32 to 33 inch tires. We're going to go 2, 3, 4. So that's starting where the pivot pin is. 2 magnets, 3 magnets, 4 magnets, and we'll see where that ends up. Again, when we go do our testing, we want this to be, the engine RPM to be between 8,200 and 8,400 RPMs at 55 miles per hour. And let's see. The fewer magnets you have, the higher peak RPM you're going to have. So if we start off and our RPMs are too low, then we're going to remove weights. If our RPMs are too high, we're going to add weights. And we're going to start doing that from the pivot point towards the tip. We also have springs here. The gray yellow is for the primary. the gold green is for the secondary. So we're going to set those aside. And then this should be the helix. Again, this is the high load helix that's going to go in. Aftermarket Assassins. You can see their part number here. Actually, that's not a part number, that's manufacture date. So 5/18/2021. I'm guessing that's a serial number, 1062. Or maybe that's the model number, I'm not sure. So without further ado, let's get the clutches off of the machine and get them upgraded, installed, and we'll do some test runs. All right, so we're gonna get in here. I've got the clutch cover off. Assume you don't need any help with that. And we're basically just gonna follow the Aftermarket Assassins instructions. I went over this video the other night. Pretty straightforward to get this done. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the secondary off. So we'll pull this bolt. This will have some shims and stuff behind it. So it's very important when you pull this that you maintain the order of those. Once we pull this off, it's going to come right off of the helix. We'll go ahead and take the belt off the front of the primary. When we pull the belt off, we need to make sure that we maintain the same direction for the belt. So I will mark that with a Sharpie right on top of the belt here. I have a silver Sharpie that I use to mark these things. So I'll indicate the direction of the belt so that we get it on there the exact same way. And then we will take the primary off. There is a Torx bolt inside here that will pop off, and then unlike the primaries on previous models, this outer sheave is just gonna pop right off there, separate from the inner sheave. Same thing with the secondary here. So let's get to it. See those shims? We need to make sure that they remain in order. So I'm gonna go put these over on the bench in this order. Oops. Lots of dirt inside there. There was one other shim that fell off, so I'm gonna grab that quick. Then we can take this belt off. Up over the front like so. And remember, we want to recognize the direction of this. Just for reference, the 3-2 is facing forward. So actually the part number, the way this one is on, the part number reads as it should, left to right. But I'm going to mark this anyway. And then this inner sheave should just slide right off as well. All right, there we go. You can see there's a lot of dirt in there, so we'll get the compressor and we'll blow that out. But let's get this over to the bench and get it installed. All right, so we got the clutch off. We got the secondary clutch off. I blew it out with the compressed air. We've got it on our clutch compressor here. So we're putting pressure down for when the spring releases. So we've got the clutch on here with the spring compressor tool. These are 16 millimeter. So we're gonna go ahead and zap these off real quick. They do recommend you use blue Loctite on these. I'll look up the torque specs here in a minute. Actually, let's look right now, just so we know. helix fasteners for the driven clutch. That's your secondary clutch, 32 foot-pounds. So when we put this back on, it'll take 32 foot-pounds. And we'll also throw some blue Loctite on those. So now that we have this, man, those magnets are strong. Now that we have this, have those screws out of there, we'll slowly let the pressure up off this spring. Getting close there to no tension. And now I'm just gonna unscrew this from the base because it's just faster. This cup we're gonna retain, we're gonna reuse this. So this spring comes out like this. We're gonna be replacing it with this. So we'll reuse that, set that aside. Here's the stock helix. So we're gonna set that aside. I'm gonna go blow some of this dirt out again. All right, so we've got the dirt out of there. We're gonna put this spring in. Like so. The cup goes on like that. Fits in that recess. And then we're going to go ahead and put our rod back in. Oh, this spring's longer. So we're going to put our rod back in. You'll have to back this nut off a little bit because this spring is going to be longer. I'm going to screw this into the base of the compression tool. It'll bottom out on the workbench there. And then we'll spin this nut down, and we're going to start compressing this. And then we'll get this this stuff roughly lined up. I'll get that lined up here real quick while there's not as much tension on it. And then we'll start to compress this down. Getting close here. Probably close enough now that we can start these bolts. We'll get some blue Loctite to put on, as recommended by the guys at Aftermarket Assassins. And there you go. New helix is installed, fits nicely in there. Now we just have to torque these to 34 foot-pounds, I believe is what it was. Nope, 32 foot-pounds. So now that we've got this all torqued down 32 foot-pounds, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over. And I'm gonna use some Scotch-Brite on the sheaves. There are only 430 miles on these sheaves, but since I have them out, I'm going to go ahead and clean them up. I'm not sure if you can see there or not, but there's definitely some residue on them, and I've been touching them with my hand, so I want to get all the oil off. Just go over them in kind of a crosshatch pattern. And then, like we've done in the past, we'll use some some electrical cleaner, contact cleaner. And then we'll wipe it down. You can see what we're taking off. All right, so that's the inner sheave. We'll set that aside. And then we're going to do the same thing to the outer sheave. One thing of note, and I took a video before I did anything to these. This is the stock sheave, and I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a mark here and it's pitted or scored also here. Again, you know, pretty new machine, 430 miles, all stock. I'm not sure what this is all about, but I'm going to mention it to my dealer and see if there's something that needs to be done about it. All right, now we're going to put it back on. So now we're going to look at the primary. We're going to get that out, get the new weights in, and we'll get everything reinstalled, and then we'll go take some runs. To make this easier, I removed this shock guard that's here. And I have a T60 impact, and I have a long extension. We're going to use an impact wrench to zap this off here. Now, they do say that the first time taking this off can be a real bear, so this is obviously our first time. We'll see what it does. Get a magnet in here to pull this Torx bolt out. They say to use the spring that's in here as the slide hammer. So that's what we're doing. Didn't come off easily. They said it probably wouldn't. So we'll see. You can probably also see, man, there's a lot of dirt coming out of there. So we'll definitely need to be cleaning that up. So we finally got this beast off, and I was just using the spring, its own spring mechanism, as, you know, kind of a slide hammer. So it seemed to have worked. It took quite a few shots, but I got it off, and I certainly didn't want to do anything different, you know, and risk damage, you know, with pullers and that kind of thing. So it did eventually just totally pop off. What I'm going to do now is mark this so that I'm sure everything lines up. The X's are actually in the correct place here on this. So there's an X, there's an X, and I don't see the X on the bottom. It's probably underneath something, but I've marked it with red marker. So when I reassemble this, all those red markers need to line up. Something that's different also from the other clutches I've worked on the XP and even the RS1. I think this is different than the RS1. I'm relatively certain. One, this sheave comes off all by itself. So that's one thing. And then you don't have to use a compression tool. Basically, they just say, you know, you hold this down and slowly loosen the bolts on this tower, this cover, and you know, it comes off. So that's what we're going to do. We'll get the corners started. Looks like there's red Loctite on these, so we'll make sure that we put something back on. I'll check the instructions. And then once you get to these, you just slowly back them off until it's loose, totally loose. There it is, yeah. Really nothing to it. Look how long this stock spring is compared to this one. Of course, the gauge is much heavier on this one than the stock spring, so we're going to set that aside. So now we're going to pull this out. We're going to make sure that this all stays intact. There's a little rubber washer in here. I'm going to wipe all the crud off of this. Make sure that everything stays in the same order. Right now this isn't coming apart, so we're just going to keep it like that. I'll set it to the side. Now we'll just wiggle this. Got to wiggle this up a little bit. Probably easier if I turn it upside down. These little buttons might want to come out, so just keep an eye on them. These little buttons here like to fall out. So we'll sit all this over here like so. Now you can see the X under here. Here's the X, there's the red mark. So now we're going to get to swapping these weights out. I'll set these weights up. Running out of daylight, we got to go riding tomorrow. So I got to get this done. Get the machines back together and tested. These are the new weights. Now if we look at our cheat sheet, I forget what it was, 2, 3, 4. Stock tune, S3 with high load helix. That's what we've got. 2, 3, 4. So that's starting at the pivot. 2, 3, 4. So that's what we're going to do. So this is 10 millimeter, the nut, and then the Allen head is 2.5 millimeter. So out that comes. This is a stock weight, and we're going to replace it with one of these. Just going to get this nut started, and then we'll move on to the next one, and we'll go back then and torque everything. According to the manual, these will get 20 inch-pounds. Aftermarket Assassins just says snug them down until they bottom out, and then that's good enough. Probably not too far off. I mean, 20 inch-pounds isn't much, but we'll make sure that we put the right torque on them. Like the other ones, or like the rear clutch, I'm gonna clean the sheaves off with some Scotch-Brite and some contact cleaner. Now the inner sheave for the primary is not gonna come off. We're gonna leave that on the machine, so I will clean that up while it's still installed. We're going to hope these clutch weights are right, otherwise I'm going to have to pull this all back off again and change the magnets. But hey, that's all part of it. We'll get it all installed correctly and go from there. A little trial and error. We want to make sure we have the RPMs right and we're getting max performance out of our side-by-side. So now we can go ahead and start getting this reassembled. I'm going to go blow this out real quick, actually. Okay, so now remember, the X's all have to line up. Make sure that your weights are all down. We'll get these buttons started, which can be a real pain in the neck. Not too bad, huh? All right, all right. Okay, so now that's in. We'll get this centered back in there. Got our spring in. I'm gonna go blow this out real quick. All right, again, we got to make sure that this all lines up. Got the red here. Now, these have red Loctite on them. I'm going to see what it says. Well, neither manual, neither the Aftermarket Assassins instructions or the Polaris manual tell me to put Loctite on these. Clearly, there was red Loctite on these. Let me see. Nope. So X, red, red, red. We've got them all lined up. I'm going to take a brush. I'm going to knock off some of this. I'm going to knock off some of this red Loctite, and then I'm going to put blue Loctite on. Install evenly in a crisscross pattern. All right, so we'll get a little bit of blue Loctite going here. Whew, that was a lot. All right, that's all she wrote. Primary is about ready to go, but we're gonna go clean that inner sheave real quick. And then we'll get her all started and get it tested. Okay, so now we've got everything back together as far as the parts we took off. Now we just need to get them put back on the machine, tightened up and tested. This primary is proven to be a pain in the ass to get on and off. I like the old style better. Yeah, suggested we're going to use a torque stick here. So there's 140 foot-pounds on the torque stick. Now that we got the primary on, we'll put the belt back on, and we'll put the secondary back on. So, very interesting. I didn't look at the, I just looked at the Polaris manual here. It says 43 foot-pounds for this. I thought this bolt was a little small for 43 foot-pounds, but that's what the Polaris manual said. I went back and looked at the Aftermarket Assassins. The 2021s have a different bolt, only 25 foot-pounds. So I'm glad I didn't keep torquing on that and risk breaking it. 25 will probably be a little easier to hit. There you go, that's 25. All right, so we got the belt riding all the way up in the sheave there. I guess it's time to go test it out. I'm going to leave the belt cover off as they instruct us to, and we'll do a couple passes and see if we need to adjust the weights. So we're going to start her up here for the first time, see what we got. The first run yielded about 8,050 to 8,100 RPM, maybe up to 8,150, a little bit low. You can actually hear it. Seems like it's not shifting right. RPMs, you know, the engine doesn't seem like it's making the power that it should. So we came back, we took the primary out. By the way, huge pain in the tail to get that out. The recommended weights were 234 from the pivot. So working from the from the mounting point out to the tip of the weight, the magnet configuration was 234. Was not where we needed it to be. Aftermarket Assassin says it's 100 to 150 RPMs per magnet. So I decided to pull out 2 magnets, and I started that from the pivot, so the attach point. I pulled one out there, pulled one out in the middle, and then I left the tip the same at 4. So basically I'm at 124 now, and we're gonna go see where the RPMs fall out. All right, so we did that run with the new magnet configuration. Again, 124. This is running the XTR 370 32-inch tires. They're 46 pounds per tire. That weighs as much as the stock Carnivore tire and wheel combined. So definitely heavier. We did know that going into this, if we had heavier tires, we were going to probably have to change the configuration of the weights that are recommended. These are pretty heavy tires. So where we ended up at, and you can't see very well because the GoPro didn't like the light of the dash in the dark, so it's kind of got a bloom. So you can't see the RPMs, but the RPMs came out around 8,300. So that hit our target of between 8,200 and 8,400. 8,300 was good. The machine is running well. So we'll talk about the draggy results here a little bit to summarize. Best time with the stock clutch and the big tires was 6.93 seconds. That's 10 miles per hour to 60, and that is on a grade. I think it was about a 6% grade. It was the best long run that I had here. I wish I could have done it on flat, but it was an uphill pull. Then once I changed the clutch, the first recommended clutch weight configuration, the best I got was 7.6. So definitely you can see the weights being wrong, not allowing the RPMs to come up. And it cost us just about a second, not quite a second. And then when I got the weights back to the point where we got the 8,300 RPMs, we got 6.7 seconds, 10 to 60. So that was better than the stock clutch configuration. And really the benefit here, because I'm running the high load helix, is that I have more clamping power. So I'll get less belt slip. That was the key with the high load helix. Aftermarket Assassins doesn't really advertise that you will get improved performance per se with respect to acceleration. They say it'll be similar. So we did knock off a couple tenths of a second on that run. So we've got an improved performance. 2.5 tenths actually seems pretty good. You know, I didn't do anything else but put the clutch kit in, and I'm going to get improved clamping power on that clutch so that I don't get the slip with these bigger tires. So all in all, seems like a success. Happy with it so far. We have had it out and ridden it. Put probably 130 miles on it since we had the clutch job, and pretty happy with it so far. We'll see how it fares out as time goes on. The clutch kit is really well put together. It's a nice product. The helix looks nice. The only problem is that freaking clutch. The Polaris design of that clutch just makes it a lot more difficult to get off of the machine and reconfigure. Not sure why they did that. I thought it was going to be awesome. I thought it was going to be better. Definitely not. It can be frustrating. So if it's the first time you're pulling that primary, have some patience. With that said, thanks as always for watching and supporting the channel. If you haven't done so already, make sure you smash the subscribe button, hit the alerts bell so that you can see what's coming up next. And until next time, Dirty Roosters out.